What's going on, guys? Welcome to Boosted Motorsports. So behind me, I've got our 426 3-liter Whipple supercharged HEMI in this Dodge Dakota. So if you guys haven't been following along with the channel, we've been working on a ton of projects, but this one has went from a simple scat pack swap. It was originally just supposed to be a 6.4 with an 8-speed in it, and then things rapidly got out of hand, and now we are at where we are at now. So a complete color change. We sent this out. We completely tore this vehicle down to the frame. Got a complete color change into this Destroyer gray color that you see here. Painted all the engine bay. And now we've got our fully built engine in here. So we got the parts from MMX. Got a brand new block, CNC ported heads, Hooker Blackheart headers. It's got pretty much everything you can ask for on this. And then a brand new 3-liter Whipple on it. I got some stuff on it. It's been a little while since we've tackled the projects, because if you guys have been following with the channel, we ended up picking up the RV, the Breaking Bad RV. We had to get this ready so that we could go to LS Fest and Mo Party, and that worked out great. And now you can see that everything is super congested. You'll also notice, if you're stopping by the channel for the first time, that we've got the Dakota. So we built this a few years back now. It's our fully Hellcat swapped Dodge Dakota. It's got full interior, all 2019, everything in that one. And then our other two vehicles, we've got the built Hellcat Challenger, and then we got the Hellcat Ram over there. So we have been working on some stuff behind the scenes. Let me put this vehicle up, because we've got a complete TIG welded stainless steel exhaust on it now. It looks really good, and so let me just put it up and let the video speak for itself. All right, so truck is up, and check it out. So 3-inch all the way back, true dual, all TIG welded, V-banded all the way throughout. So this thing is super nice, you guys. And then we went ahead and installed factory Hellcat mufflers, because I really like the sound of them. I know how this thing is going to sound. It's not going to sound super raspy, but it will bark and have a nice tone to it. So we put the factory Hellcat mufflers on here, and we also made them so they're removable. If we ever want to change the sound, you can see there's V-band clamps here and there, so we can literally take this out, put a different muffler in it if we want to make it louder, quieter, whatever. Then we go over top of the axle here, again, all 3-inch, all the way back. And then we got 2 resonators here, stainless steel ties here, stainless steel hangers, the works. We went with some downturns here, and they're just tucked right up against the roll pan. So that way, from the back, you're not really gonna see anything. If you get down, you might see like, whatever that, it might be an inch or so of the actual downturns, but it's gonna look really clean out the back. And this thing is gonna sound really, really good. So, like you guys, I wanna hear this thing just as much as you guys do, but in order to do that, we gotta finish a bunch of other stuff. So, as far as things, we still got a bunch of wiring to do and contend with, and then I still have some plumbing to do. So, we've got right here, I've got this taped up. I need to put the oil cooler sandwich adapter back in here, and then we've got to run a couple lines out to here. So I have to make up some bracketry for an oil cooler to hang out over here. And then I also have to get the other cooling systems in there. We've got our AC condenser, and we've got our cooler for the supercharger, which all have to go in here as well. So let's bring this back down. The other thing I have to do too is measure for a belt. So I got to get the serpentine belt on here, but I have to measure the length. And I want to do that before I start putting all the cooler stuff in here, because it's just gonna be a heck of a lot easier to measure it with the radiator out. So we'll bring it down, get some stuff underway, and then also in this video we have, I'm not even making this up or trying to clickbait you guys, a Demon 170 throttle body. This thing is huge, you guys. I can fit my entire fist inside it. So this is a 105 from Mopar. Look at that, factory Mopar, but the thing is massive. And then MMX sells an adapter plate to go from the Demon 105 mil. They make this billet adapter piece that will go to the Whipple supercharger. So we've got the gasket, we've got the adapter, and we've got this huge Demon 170 throttle body. Also, we've got FIC 1000cc injectors. So we've got these because right now we've just got Hellcat sized injectors, so we're kind of limited on fuel. But we're gonna swap those out for the FIC 1000s. And then you also notice these here. I don't have the rest of the fittings just yet, but I wanna get these in here. So you can see here, HEMI compressor fittings. So these are gonna go on our AC compressor right there where it's capped off. Those will go in, and then I can go ahead and make up our custom AC line. So lots of work to get done, you guys, but we're chipping away at it. Let's bring it down and just start knocking things out. All right, so this is the absolute wild routing that we got to do with this Whipple. So just took a piece of wire, and that way I can measure out the belt length, because again, it's gonna be all custom, especially since we've got the Holley power steering pump And then we've got Holley's alternator relocation bracket with the Holley alternator as well, the 1 wire. So I'm just gonna measure out this wire, and then we can hopefully go see my boy Tony over at AutoZone, get a couple belts, and see which one's gonna ultimately fit. All right, so I got my tape in the saw cut on the floor, and then I taped down the end of this. And look at how long this thing is. 116 inches and a half is where my mark ends up being. So that's with the tensioner fully extended. So we can probably go, I don't know, maybe 115 and a half, 116. We'll get a few size belts and we'll see what it looks happy with on the tensioner, but this is a long belt. So while we wait for Tony to find us a belt, I am messing with this right now. So I'm putting in the oil cooler, and this is a Hellcat oil cooler adapter. So the original one is like a big brick looking thing. Let me show you guys here. So usually it looks like this, where it's got your water lines in and out, but we're not using that style. Like I said, the Hellcat version of this just has 2 huge fittings coming out of it, and then I've put in these Earls fittings, these 90s, and then I've clocked it so that I can tighten these in here. So I'm gonna go ahead, tighten these down, and then I'll be able to run our 2 oil lines. There's really not a whole lot of room in here, and I want to put these on a 90 down here, because if I come straight, this thing ever chucks a belt or anything like that, then the lines will be in the way. But if I come down through here, make a nice arch here, you can see the bottom of the trucks here. So I've got like 4 inches from here that they'll be out of harm's way. They'll be, you know, above the lowest point of the vehicle. You can see a better profile here. So see how this is a lot higher than the bottom part. So I can come through here. Probably gonna mount it here. On my truck, I have it mounted down there, but this bumper doesn't have the holes here. So I have my oil cooler, as you can see right there, the factory one, but mine's a bit of a pavement princess. This is probably the ultimate cooling, because it can hit air there and come out the back, but also mine's a little bit more susceptible to, you know, potentially chucking a rock at it. But I'm also a gearhead, so I'm always looking at my gauges and stuff like that. But a safer place to put it is probably going to be in the front, so I'm going to try to put it there if I have enough room. We got a lot of stuff that I got to try to stack in the front end, but we'll see how we make out. But just getting things kind of situated here, so I'm going to snug this up. I can also tighten up my engine mount, so I'll probably snug those up since we're in here, and just keep knocking things out. So I also got to tighten this engine mount as well, because it's just sitting in the groove at the moment. Okay, so just mapping some stuff out. I still got to finalize some of the hardware and whatnot, and clean up some of these bolts, the factory bolts. But we've got our AC condenser in here. We've got our cooler in between the radiator in there, so that fit nicely with those custom brackets that I made up. Those are up in there, and then there's sufficient space between the two, and then that's where that's going to come out. I'm probably going to trim this off the radiator just to give myself a little bit more clearance there. So that's that fitting there, and I think the other one is right here, so that one's got plenty of clearance. So what I'm going to do now is fit the front bumper and see how much space I have here. I'm hoping that I got enough to fit this right here. So what I'm thinking, so what I'm hoping and thinking is that can go right there, like so. Make some brackets for it, and we'll see how we make out here. All right, it's raining out, so it might be a little loud in here on the camera, but you can see I got the bumper back in place and the cooling system, and there is absolutely no room really to put that in there without potentially the bumper getting into it. So I think I'm gonna have to go back with my idea of putting it here. I'm probably gonna end up opening this up so that we got direct airflow, and then I'll probably reinstall the fender liners, which isn't a bad idea either. And then that way that'll come down here. It'll shroud it from any potential rocks or debris or anything like that, but then it'll get fresh air through here. And there's also this opening right there as well. So that's the situation with that. Right now, while I kind of map that out, this bumper appears to be missing the brackets. There's brackets that go across to over there. It's like go on an angle to triangulate. So I don't know if the body shop took them off or where they ended up, but they are no longer there. All right, so here's another newer Dakota, I guess we can call it. It's got the one-piece plastic bumper like ours. It's got these brackets, but no brackets in the corner. So when I look online, it shows that it should have them, but in person, none of them seem to have it. So let's go check and see if I can find a few more. Maybe it's not supposed to have those brackets on the newer one. Here's another one. So it looks like it's when it's the two-piece bumper. that it has the secondary bracket, but all the one-piece bumpers, no secondary bracket. Okay, here's another plastic one-piece, or it was originally one-piece bumper. Same thing, no corner brackets. So I guess we should be okay, surprisingly. We've got no corner brackets here. Interesting. So I don't know if you guys can see this. So it does have like this bracket that comes across to here, which ours has, but nothing that goes from the frame over to the bumper. So I guess maybe it doesn't have it. It'll save us some nonsense. All right, and a Durango, another example. No brackets in there. So nothing that goes from the frame over to the bumper, just these front ones, and similar amount of room in the front here too. So what I'm doing right now is I have the 1000cc injectors that needed to be put in, so swapping them out. So we got the fuel injector Clinic 1000cc's. I already changed out these. So these are the, I don't know if you guys will be able to see the FIC, so those are 1000s. They look identical to the Hellcat ones, so these were the Hellcat ones that were in here originally, but except the FICs are somehow modified. There you go, FIC 1000cc. So I'm gonna get these loaded up, put them in the rails, put them back on here. This one's not too bad. Still a bit of a pain in the butt to get to. And then this one's buried underneath this reservoir, so I'm gonna take all this stuff off, but let me get in there. That way it's gonna be the easiest to get to right now before we start getting more stuff in here, and it's gonna be even harder. All right, and here's our driver's side fuel rail. We'll get these injectors out, get the FICs in here, get the rail back on. All right, fuel rails and fuel injectors are back installed, but you can't even see them because they're buried. But I'm gonna go ahead and finally take off this sticker, and let's get this throttle body on here and kind of see what it looks like. I might have to remove it afterwards. We'll see if I will or won't need to, but we'll take this off. If I can get the sticker off of here. Damn, first time the Whipple has seen daylight. So I'm gonna take that out of there. Like I said, I might have to take it back off to get in here and whatnot with some miscellaneous, but let's at least fit it up, see what it looks like. So this is the setup here. We're gonna use the gasket that Whipple supplied. Then this adapter from MMX is gonna go on top. And then MMX gives us this gasket. Not sure what the clock or orientation is, but you get the idea, 5 bolts, and then this will go on top. So let's assemble all that. Okay, so next little project is we've got our radiator here. We are obviously going to have an electric fan on it. So I've got this fan and shroud here, but the tabs don't line up. This is actually from a newer Dakota. I was hoping it was gonna fit, but the tabs are all different. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna grind off these welds here, and then we'll end up cleaning it up, but we'll end up taking these tabs off. So I'm gonna take all 4 tabs off. And then I picked up some aluminum flat stock here. And what we're gonna do with this is we're gonna take this, once we get the old tabs all off, then we're gonna measure to go to the radiator tabs, the ones that are pre-existing here. We're gonna put 90-degree bends in them, similar to how those are, and then we'll weld them to the shroud, and then we can bolt it straight up to here. All right, so tabs are all on the ground, and they're all removed from the shroud, so probably end up polishing the top lip off afterwards. And now I can go ahead and mock this up and hopefully start making some tabs, and then we'll weld them back on. All right, so you'll see I've got my fan shroud, and then I've got 2 radiators next to each other. So I started sizing up the fan shroud, and I noticed when I was installing this one, and this one's been in and out a few times just for test fitting, every time it seemed like the holes were a little bit off. Like I had to kind of raise it up on the one side. And then when I got to looking at it, I don't know if you guys will be able to see it on the camera, but check that out. It goes like this, and then the whole core shifts down right there. So this side was higher, and I don't know if you'll be able to see that on the bottom. It goes like downward slope. So this whole thing is like bent. So I ended up picking up another one which is straight. So hopefully this one fits a little bit better, but let's go ahead and size everything up on this one. All right, so I got the fan shroud kind of mocked up where I want it. Kind of a few things. So I'm actually liking the way this is coming out, and the reason being is I can seal off the top, and I can also seal off this portion, but then I can also leave about 4 inches here for air to freely pass through it. One of the things when you run this type of fan shroud is you have to have a spot for when you're actually traveling at speed for the air to pass through. So this portion allows for that to happen, as opposed to if you don't have anything like that, like either a flap on the back of this. Actually, the Corvette C5, I had to relieve a bunch of openings in the back of the fan shroud so that air, when you're actually traveling at speed, can pass through it, because otherwise this acts as a big blocker plate. So with having a few inches on the bottom, it kind of allows for that to happen naturally, and it actually is going to fit quite well. So I'm just making up some brackets. So what I've got here is that flat sock. I bent it at 90 degrees, if you're wondering how I did so. Took a rubber mallet, or pretty much a plastic hammer, I should say. Put that in here, measured where I wanted it to, and then just used the plastic hammer to make this into a 90-degree bend. And then I'm gonna cut this tab to length right there. So it's gonna go up to the factory bracket on the radiator. Also, I'm sure some people are gonna ask why I'm not using like an aftermarket aluminum tank radiator. Couple things. I've done this enough times to know that using a factory radiator like this with plastic end tanks and the aluminum core, it usually 9 times out of 10 works better than those super thick, like 3 or 4 inch core ones, for a few reasons. One, when you get the thicker core, especially when we're trying to pass air through more than just a normal application, like we've got to go through the AC condenser, the heat exchanger for the supercharger, and then finally it's going to land at the radiator. If we have a 4-inch core back here, it's just so much more obstruction that it has to try to pass through. We have to try to pass air through to get the thing to cool. So I've had other cars in the past where I put a huge massive radiator on it and it overheats, and then you go back to the standard core one and then it runs as should. So other thing too is, because we're fitting so much under there, I like keeping the smaller core in here, but I will absolutely guarantee you guys we won't have any issues. I mean, if you look at the radiator that's on this, it is the exact same configuration. So it's a smaller core, plastic end tanks on the Hellcat, and absolutely no issues. So I'm going with the same principle here. Let me get these tabs made up and then we'll start welding them. Well, I am not claiming to be an aluminum or TIG welder by trade, but I will get the job done. So got these all on here, welded up where we want them to. So I got my 4 tabs all there, so I can let this thing cool off. I'm gonna have to readjust the bolt holes. Actually, some of them are okay, but especially we'll have to drill out the bolt hole that we need on this one. But let this cool off and then we'll get it mounted up to our radiator. There we go. So all of our tabs are welded in place. I'm really happy with how that turned out. So I'm gonna put some new hardware in there, but you get the idea because I've got mismatching hardware. But yeah, all came out really good, lines up with the top, and then all I'll have to do is just put insulating foam there to tuck off the seal, and just basically around the perimeter, and then probably across there as well, just so that this thing can pull a suction through the core. So anyways, that's done. Let's move on to the next. All right, next little project, we've got the oil cooler here. So I got the brackets that you can get for these, but they pretty much put it on a 90 degree, and every time I've ever installed one of these, I've always made up my own caged bracket. So what I've got here is 1.5 inch by 1/8 thick flat bar here. And essentially I'm gonna make a bracket for this, and I'll show you guys where I'm gonna put it. So I got the front bumper off, and where I'm gonna put it is right there. So I'm gonna have that sitting right like that. So you can pretty much mount these any which way. You can mount them horizontal, you can mount them vertical. The biggest thing is just gonna be making sure that airflow gets to it. So you can see the core runs across there, but if you guys don't believe me, you can fact check me, but you can mount these however you want. Only thing is just some people say about mounting them so that potentially air can get bled out of it. So, you know, if you're gonna mount it horizontal, maybe put the fittings to the top, but I've seen them mounted every which way. So we're gonna put it like that, and I'm gonna make a bracket, basically a cage that's gonna go around this, and then I'm going to end up mounting it to here. So I'll figure out where I'm gonna put maybe a riv cert, maybe 3, I don't know, we'll figure it out, but it's gonna bolt right like that. So let me start making up this bracket. We'll get this in here, and it's gonna sit nicely right there. Okay, another little update for you guys. Just finished welding this. Actually used the TIG welder for this one, but welded my bracket. So we've got all 4 corners 1/8 inch thick, and then this is gonna go here, and I'm gonna make a bracket that's gonna come off of this to the frame, put a few riv certs in there, and then she will be solid. All right, many hours later, but I'm really happy with the outcome. So ended up putting 3 bolts right here. We've got riv certs on the inside of the frame there, so those 3 are there. And then I just put this little L bracket, don't know if you guys can see it. There's a rivsert on the back of the L bracket that screws in from there, gives it a ton of support. So that's gonna look really nice right there. I really like the way that all squared up with the frame and the chassis. Looks really, really good. So I'm gonna take it off. I'm gonna paint my bracket black. We'll let it dry overnight, and then that'll be one more thing done. And the bumper fits beautifully right around here. I didn't have to do any trimming on the bumper. Only thing I'll have to do is open up that fog light hole. Okay, so hopefully you guys saw what I did there. So there is the fog light insert, and I just went ahead, used my favorite tool lately, the multi-tool. I had a coarser bit on here and just kept making passes until we essentially burned through the edge. And then once I removed that, then I just put on some 60 grit on this pad, smoothed it out, and now we've got a perfect opening, perfectly clean. Paint's not all messed up. It's because some shavings on it, because it's a little bit dusty right now, but we can go ahead, hang this on here and check it out. And also, here's how this came out, you guys. So here we go. Brackets all nicely painted. I ended up putting this little L bracket here to the body, which is easily removed if you need to, you know, take the body off of the frame for whatever reason, if the cab's got to come off, anything like that. But this thing is absolutely solid, you guys. I can literally shake the whole truck with it and it is not going anywhere. So that's all done. I also raised up this front bumper bracket a little bit because for whatever reason the bumper was sitting a little bit like that. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna pick this up, put it on here. Let's see how she looks. Well, it is now after the Hurricane Milton. We had to kind of buckle everything down and go into lockdown mode, but we are back working on this. So what I ended up doing is I ended up getting our accessory belts on here, our serpentine belt, however you want to say it. In this case, it's kind of all in one the same on this setup here. This thing was super long, but we got it. So that's on here. I also, what I did do is I ordered two 45-degree couplings, long ones, and they're going to work out beautifully. So I've got a union in here, a billet aluminum union, and then those two 45s, and that makes up our lower hose, keeps it nice and neat, tidy. What I'm going to do also is I got to get from A to B. What I'm thinking of doing is coming up here, getting another one of those 45s, and I think I'll get it here, and then we got to get from here to here. So we're gonna have to make a 90-degree or even more than a 90-degree turn here, and we've got to leave enough room to still have an intake arm here. So it's gonna be a tight fit through here, but I think we can get it done. So that's pretty much where we're at the moment. I'm gonna keep working on some stuff. I'll show you guys some updates and see if we can get this thing buttoned up. So we're just making up the oil lines, custom oil lines from the Hellcat sandwich adapter over to our freshly mounted oil cooler. So we've got the Earl's fittings here, and we've got our hose here, Mr. Gasket hose. So if you guys have ever done this, don't try to do it without using this. I've tried using it with WD-40, and I don't know what they put in this stuff, but you'll be fighting yourself. This stuff is pretty thick stuff, whatever it is, but it makes this so much easier. Also having the proper tools. So if you're wondering what I got here, I mean, you don't have to buy the Earl's one, but I would suggest it. It is made out of the same aluminum that the fitting is made out of. And also I'm using these aluminum wrenches. So you can see here the 10AN fittings. And when you use the same aluminum as the fitting, it won't mark it. So we got it all oiled up. I made this to length, so I cut it to length. If you're wondering why the MAP gas is out, I end up just, when you get these frayed cloth ends, I end up heating them up. Just kind of almost like if you took the end of a nylon rope and, you know, cut it and then you melted it so it doesn't fray more. That's what I'm doing there. So anyways, I'll get this screwed in and then we can get this line on and get one more made up. All right, one freshly custom made line done. One more to go. Dennis! John! All right, we got a helper. So Dennis is hanging out, helping out. We definitely have a lot on the punch list, the virtual punch list that we need to complete. So right now what we're working on is the hoses for our supercharger cooler. So we need to mount this pump, and we decided we're gonna mount it right here. So I just finished drilling out 2 holes in our frame. We're gonna put the rivserts in there. And then that pump will get mounted there. We've got our plug here. This goes up to the supercharger. And then this one, we're thinking something along those lines. We're gonna have to shorten out the hose. These hoses are just for a, scat pack, or not scat pack. Yeah, actually scat pack. What am I talking about? Charger Challenger. So we got plenty of length, but we're gonna cut them up to fit our purposes. And then the other hose, you can see right there, it goes up to the supercharger. So we're getting everything fitted in, but we'll keep kind of plugging away on this stuff, and I'll show you guys what we're doing. All right, so we got our pump mounted. We're gonna have to size up the hose, but it's gonna go from there to there. That one's gonna clearance nice through there. We'll button that one up, and then a couple other things we got done. Took the starter off because we just had it kind of situated here, just hanging, but ended up tightening up our flex plate bolts, the ones that go from our flex plate to our torque converter. Put in the bolts for the bottom of the Holly pan. We plugged in our transmission line here, and then what else are we gonna do with
NOx sensors?
Yep, that is true. We did put our NOx sensors on, plug those guys in on both sides. Yeah, we had to plug in our cab to like the back of the chassis harness. This is the way this goes from the factory. It's kind of silly. It goes into there and does a big loop right in front of the tire, which is a little absurd, but it's the way it goes. But once the fender liner goes back in, it'll cover most of that. And then we're gonna bring the truck back down. We're gonna get our wideband O2 sensor, plug it in, and then we will cap this one because the Holly just needs one wideband on one side, so we'll put it on our driver's side, and then we'll see what else we get into. All right, Dennis, explain to the peoples.
We got the coolant pump here for the supercharger, all plumbed in.
Yeah, so it came out really good. We spent some time trimming back the hose that came for the Charger Challenger stuff, and now we've got perfect clearance all around our frame rails. And then we already test fitted the bumper, and it fits beautifully inside the bumper. We got our clamps facing up so that with the bumper on, we can still service everything. And yeah, looks good. And then we just got to dress this in, but this is probably going to go that direction behind the power steering pump. We'll dress that in like that, keep it away from the exhaust. Everything clears. So only other things, we got to put our wire here and bring our wiring up top and get that all wired in. Other thing we did too is we got our brand new power steering lines. So we got these in place. The return is running over to the reservoir. I don't know if you can see it through here. And then our high pressure, oh, right there. So there's our return, and then our high pressure line is into the Holly pump. So we're good to go there. I'm just gonna put a P-clamp in it to hold it all in place, and we will move on to the next thing. And then I don't think I showed you guys the finished product yet, but here is our oil cooler with the bumper off. Here's our lines. Run beautifully over to our Hellcat oil adapter, and everything comes through here. And then once I kind of get these finalized, I still got to flush out these lines, but once I get them tightened into place, I'll clock them, and they'll just go around our sway bar, and I'll put some clamps as well to hold them, just to make sure they don't ever get into the sway bar. But yeah, and everything sits way higher than the bottom of the truck, so we're good to go. All right, so this stuff's all good. I flushed out our oil lines, so I'm going to go ahead and we finalize all this. So tightened up our oil sandwich adapter. And then what I'm gonna do is, don't mind the mess on the bench here right now because we're going a little bit crazy, but I just took this out of the box. Brand new Mopar oil filter. So we're gonna put this on, and then I'm just gonna run some mineral oil. So we're gonna run this Rotella here. Just non-synthetic, because it's only going to be running just for a little bit for some break-in, and then we'll be dumping this again. And then when I dump it, then we'll go ahead, we'll put the SRT filter on it. It's full synthetic, do the whole deal. Also going to fill up the oil filter, and then me and Dennis were just talking about also filling up our oil line, since our brand new oil cooler is bone dry also. And then Dennis also got our wideband O2 sensor in here as well. I gotta pick up a plug for this side, so we just put an old O2 sensor on that side for now. And yeah, we're just knocking out a bunch of items on the list. And then also our starter's back in, and then Dennis sent our wires for our starter back up top as well. I gotta snug this up here, and then we can also start putting some fluids in it, tighten this up, and then we can put some power steering fluid in it, fill up our engine oil, and just start knocking things out. All right, so Mopar filter, we got it full of oil, and we'll screw this onto our Hellcat adapter. So we were getting the fuel line sorted out. I don't know if I told you guys, but when this thing went for paints, we unfortunately had a tow truck driver that caused some issues for us. So rather than putting it on a flatbed, they ended up towing it behind a tow bar. This rear axle didn't have any oil in it, still doesn't have any oil in it, and it went from Miami to Tampa with no oil on that rear axle, so that should be a pleasant surprise when we get to that. And then on our line here, there's a bunch of like little nicks and frays, and this was suspended in the, when I left here, it was in the engine bay suspended and tucked away, but obviously they had to, you know, move everything out of the engine bay when they painted the engine bay. But this line, if I can rotate it here, it's got a bunch of road rash on it there. So it's kind of like 50-50. I could run it, but I also think if we're this far into the build, having like nicks and frays on our hose probably isn't the best idea. So probably a little bit of work, but we're gonna pop the bed, rerun the line, and then we'll get back into this whole situation. All right, so bed is up. Here is the old fuel line, and then we've got a brand new fuel line there, and we're gonna make up the line again and then put it all back together. Okay, so old line is out. We put one fitting on the one side, and it's on there, running down. Then we're gonna put the bed back down. Then we can rerun it back to the front, cut it to length. We're gonna put the new fitting on the front, and then we should have a fuel line in place. Okay, we're back up here. We just roughed in our fuel line. We're gonna go here across the transmission brace, alongside the transmission, well away from any heat source, up in the top of the transmission tunnel. So as I was saying before my camera rudely interrupted and the battery went out, we got the line up to here. So we've got brand new fuel line. Dennis is just marking it for us. And we're gonna go with a 120-degree fitting up here instead of the 90.
Look how nice that is. I know you can't see it from there, but
it's kind of hard to see because we got a lot going on in this corner, but it's gonna aim it right back this way instead of right there.
you'll see how jagged it is. Perfect.
Look at that.
Nice.
Well away from any heat sources. So we'll get that fitting. We're gonna cut the line to length there, get that fitting on, and then I don't know what's next yet. We got a lot of things next, but technically
Starter wire,
some things, more things.
oil,
fluids. Still got a lot, but we're getting closer.
Get closer.
Okay, so we got the fitting on, and we've got the bucket there, and then Dennis is gonna give us some power. Dennis, maybe?
You ready?
Sure, try it. Nothing? Oh, there we go. And we are flushing out the line. Okay, so fuel line's flushed out. I probably got at least a gallon of fuel in there that we ran through it. And then we actually connected it for the first time to our fuel rail. So there's so many hoses on this setup, you guys, but our fuel line is hooked up there. What else? We also connected a few things, starting to get some of the wires just kind of roughed in. And then I'm actually gonna put in some power steering fluid. So got brand new rack, brand new lines, brand new pump. So we can basically use whatever fluid we want. Everything is dry at the moment, so we're gonna put in some Lucas power steering fluid. We'll fill that up, and then we can also put some oil and stuff and just get everything kind of one step further and closer to potentially firing this up. Okay, so we've got fluid in our power steering. Now, for the first time, we're putting oil up in this engine. So let's get some oil in there. All right, you guys, what do you think, Dennis? We going cruising tonight?
It's go time.
So we got power back to the system. Haven't primed the fuel system yet. We just made a few changes, and we're actually gonna crank it and see if we can build a little bit of oil pressure. So we've got oil in there, power steering fluid. Still waiting for a couple of fittings to show up for our cooling system, so we're not gonna like run this for any extended period of time. We might fire it up for 20 seconds and shut it down, so we'll be okay on that for a minute. But we're gonna try and actually just turn it over, see if we can build any oil pressure, because right now we've got 0 psi. So before we try and actually fire it, we're gonna see if we can just crank it for a bit. So you ready? Potentially, Dennis?
Yeah. Well,
all right, well, let's see if
there's
we
never
got
been
anything.
fuel in the.
Oh, she does not like that. What was that?
Oh, look, -1 fuel
No.
pressure. 1 psi oil pressure.
1 psi?
Yeah. Good eye, come in. Drop down to 0, so maybe.
Yeah, I lose my screen when it cranks, which is normal, but I don't know if
There's
you
a
can
fix
see
to
on there.
that.
Oh, okay. Can you see when we're live? Like, did you see anything while we were cranking?
No, I didn't start the logger because you're making fun of me.
Oh, okay. Well, I think you should be able to see it if you're connected live. You'll be able to see it in that little thing if you go to
Yeah,
live.
find it. RPM, TPS, 4%. Maps 103 kPa. That's pretty close. Coolant temp, arrow. Oil pressure 0 psi.
All right, so we're gonna crank. This dog is gonna lose her mind.
1 psi.
Yeah. All right, yeah, I'm seeing 2 psi here too. 3.
All right.
4. That's enough, right?
Well,
4 is good.
All right, plug the fuel pump in. Are you ready?
Dog just lost her mind. She said, "Hell no!"
Let's look underneath.
It's a big scary Mopar.
Let's look for leaks or anything.
Yep. Double check. All right, we're gonna just take a little visual, and we are almost ready. Come on, get out of there. Who said you could be in there? It's not your truck. Get out of there.
You wanna go for a ride in the Whipple?
Come on, come on, come on, come here, come here, come on, come on, come on, come on, come here. You scared? You scared? He's a big scary car. Come here. You don't like that big scary Mopar. Oh no! All right, so we'll key on. I have it here. There we go. Ooh, fuel pressure. I heard it building. Let's see what we got on the dash. We got 56 psi fuel pressure.
Hey, your throttle.
It works.
See how big this thing is.
That's what she said.
Monster, dude.
Let's see this big ass throttle body here. Look at that thing.
Small kids.
Jeez. Look at that thing go. Do it again. Sheesh. That's a whole lot of air.
Whole lot of throttle body.
Alright, so we got 56 psi. Should we cycle a few times?
Yeah.
Is it 56 psi of air? Are you got it from there?
Well, that sensor doesn't know.
Alright, let's switch out our light here. I don't hear the pump changing pitch.
I can hear it.
I know, but it wasn't like the way it first was. It just sounded consistent now. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, 56.
There's so much stuff in the way, you can't even see if we had a leak anyways.
Smell it.
Double check. I'm gonna get a light in here. We're gonna double check everything, and then we potentially can crank this off, which is crazy and exciting all at the same time. All right, well, we have no fuel leaks. We've got engine oil. We have power steering fluid. Those are the only two things that we're gonna concern ourselves for the 10 or 15 seconds we might fire this thing, so. I don't know, Dennis. You ready?
Let's do it.
Shoo, I am nervous. This is a long time coming, you guys. First starts are always nerve-wracking. Let's see. So no oil pressure. Hopefully it builds it when we first go. I had to let off. I got nervous. All right, let's see. Probably so much freaking air.
There's a lot of air on the fuel lines. Oh,
bad ground.
probably. There's the fuel. It's light.
No, we got bad ground or something. All right, let's see what we got. Hold, please. All right, let's see. No, we gotta mess with maybe the.
Might have to tighten down the battery terminals.
Yeah, some of our terminals. All right, let's see. We're getting a little too ambitious. We want to hear this thing, but we might have to mess with some terminals. All right, disregard the party mess on the bench here. We've been working all day to try to get this thing to start. So we just took this starter out. We don't see anything physically wrong with it, but we checked all our wiring and don't see any reason why it won't crank. I got another identical OEM starter. So we're gonna try putting this in and see if for some reason maybe this one got tired. So see what happens. Okay, so we got the other starter in there. Let's see if that does or doesn't make the difference. What are you thinking? Let's see. Oh, dude, that's it.
Let's start.
Bad starter.
Fire up!